All right, YouTube members, I'm giving you a very small job. You have early access to these videos so you can help me get feedback faster. I'm trying some very slightly different audio settings today, so please let me know if anything seems different for the good or bad. And if you don't notice anything, just give me a comment that just says seems the same. This will be very useful for me trying to tweak some things ever so slightly for some quality of life improvements, and it's hard to tell by yourself. Thank you. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and I've been trying to find the spice recently. I know we're kind of in waiting mode until mid-November when we get our BNR update, and hopefully we get a pretty big Legacy shakeup. And I'm going to be honest with you, it is hard to find the spice right now. People have figured out Dimir decks are good, and One Ring decks are good, and then there's a few viable things outside of that, stuff like Nadu, and it's hard to keep fighting the good fight. So even though I played this a couple of weeks ago, I believe 3 weeks ago, I'm going to run back a slightly updated version of this humans list. This is a top 5 in a legacy challenge by the same pilot as before, although the build has changed a decent amount. I had a positive record last time playing this deck. And in case you want to go back and watch the other video, I won't talk about the exact details of the matches or anything like that. But in a world where people are doing a lot of unfair stuff, it is hard to want to play a fair beatdown deck. And this deck has a decent amount of +1/+1 counter synergies with Zac Fair. Zac Fair is an onboard combat trick that people did miss last time around, as it can give another creature indestructible or move its counters around at will. And this time around, we have even more ways to stock up counters than we did previously. We have fully moved on to main deck hate cards for the Reanimator matchup, as well as main deck hate cards for the One Ring matchups. And this is just kind of where we are at as a format right now. If we look at the full 75, we have 3 copies of Stony Silence and a full 4 copies of Suppression Field to give us a fighting chance versus the various One Ring decks, especially the Mystic Forge deck, where the Suppression Fields can hit your Tezzerets, your Karns, your Urza Sagas, more or less the entire deck. We do have a handful of, at least starting out, as X1 creatures in this deck, which are vulnerable to Orcish Bowmasters. However, the large number of creatures we control with +1/+1 counters, or let me rephrase that. The ability to put the +1/+1 counters on these creatures and get them outside of Orcish Bowmaster range is a very, very real benefit. I'm not sure if this is a legacy power level card. The first strike is definitely relevant, again, versus things like Orcish Bowmasters, and the double strike is real. If we get, a double striking champion of the Parish that has scaled up a couple of times, that is a way to goldfish extremely quickly. So here is our run back of 2025 humans. We'll see how it goes. If you own a decent amount of humans already, either from Legacy or Modern, it probably won't cost you very much to put together the rest of this deck. Zac and Urdnan are both uncommons. Consider ordering them from my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Use promo code ThrabenU to save yourself 5% on your order. You always get free shipping, and you don't have to worry about a billion envelopes coming in from all over the globe. You just get everything you need from one place, from a reliable vendor. Alrighty, let's battle. Alrighty, I am essentially looking at a good 6-card hand, assuming that this Chrome Mox is dead. I think that I am keeping the hand. I have an aggressive, uncounterable start, followed by an uncounterable hate card, and at some point we can mix Wasteland in there as well. Alright. Hey. I'm going to be very, very bad off against, like, the Tabernacles and Wastelands of the world. I'm thinking about whether or not I want to Chrome Mox and Wasteland the Boseiju in the hopes of knocking my opponent off of enough mana to activate Expedition Map to search something out. I think that is overly ambitious. think I'm going to let them search something out, hope that they only have it and not something like a Life from the Loam to pair with it. Alright, there's the map for Yavimaya. Another wasteland. Crop rotation. Yeah, saw that coming. Alright, the good news is it's not Life from the Loam. Bad news is they get a lot of looks at Life from the Loam. And my shit is just wastelandable right now if I play out a land. I suspect that this game is over and I have already lost. I am only pressuring my opponent for 1 point of damage here. They can take some damage off of Sylvan Libraries somewhat safely. This is not a deck that I am built to beat, and lands tends to eat fair mid-range decks alive. Thespian stage, another wasteland. I'm so dead to crop rotation because I will give my opponent 20 life, and 20 life with Sylvan Library, or a total of 35-ish life, is a disaster. So I think the way that I've got to play this is do Cavern and get double strike going immediately, and then leave up Swords to Plowshares so I don't die to crop rotation being the last card. So 1 counter from Champion, 1 counter from Urdnan, then we Chrome Mox, we'll imprint the Sanctifier en-Vec. That's the wrong kind of graveyard hate for this matchup. I will crash in for 6 points of damage. And we can't just leave up Caracas for Merit Lage because my opponent has double active Wasteland. Alright, send in. Double strike. Hey, it's that thing that I played around because I knew that I was very fucking dead to it. Oh, they were doing Maze instead. Yeah, that's unfortunate. They're just gonna double Maze and prolong this game. Prolong this game well. Sylvan Library does gross stuff. Thanks, I hate it. Yeah, knew that was coming. You hit Life from the Loam, you hit Urza's Saga. That's terrible. Alright. Play the Lieutenant. Scale up my creatures and pass the turn. Not gonna bother to make my opponent click through that. I think my concession point is my opponent finding a Life from the Loam. I don't think I can beat Tabernacle plus Wasteland. I'm only attacking for a singular point of damage next turn as of right now. It's turn 5. That's not really an acceptable rate. There's yet another Maze of Ith or Urza's Saga. I mean, that helps a lot, actually. But my opponent has, what, 2, 4, 6, 7 lands? That's not quite as good as one might hope. Alright, opponent just lets that resolve. I will send in. You can have double strike. There's a Maze of Ith and another Maze of Ith, and I only get in 1 point of damage. Kind of an embarrassing showing on my end. I'm trying to hold this Caracas for as long as I can in case it needs to be used against a Merit Lage. There are other lines where I Caracas bounce this just to trigger my creatures that are going to grow and scale up. That's not really the best here, especially now that I have Suppression Field in play, but that was on my radar previously as something that I could do. Alright, opponent took the life, which is scary. I'm not making a friend. There's a main deck Haywire Might. I'm in bad shape. There is a Shadow Spear. Fuck. Tabernacle Wasteland Saga. This is probably a how long do I want to sit here? This taps down all of my mana sources. Next turn I lose a creature to this. My opponent can still go 2 mana, 2 mana Maze, 2 mana Maze, or just Wasteland me right now. I think I'm just going to concede. I don't think I realistically win from here. My opponent's deck did what it was supposed to do. GG. I'm interested in these additional copies of Suppression Field, and I could play this stuff. Not excited about either. Fairy Macabre does not contribute to me killing my opponent. Sanctifier en-Vec just becomes those other 2 copies of Suppression Field. I think for the game that I am on the play, I'm just going to board like this. And for the game that I am on the draw, if I win the next one, I might need to be more reactive. Yeah. How do I play this one? I think I'm just going to jam the Suppression Field on 1. This on human, and then Suppression Field. Sometimes this strands a fetch land as my opponent's only green source and keeps them off of a color. The downside of doing this is that if my opponent has a Force of Vigor and takes out Suppression Field and Chrome Mox at the same time, it's kind of devastating. And assuming I don't get Wastelanded, I then have Champion into Urdnan on my own turn with 3 mana. Okay, this is fine. And a Sylvan Library. Got it. Don't want more lands at this point. I want more humans. So there's Champion. There's Urdnan. Then we will have a double striking champion immediately. My opponent cannot currently activate Urza's Saga due to Suppression Field. Opponent takes a little bit of damage off Sylvan Library. Another Mox Diamond. Junking a Depths. There's a Reclaimer. There's a Wasteland. My opponent could pay 2 mana to activate. They are going to do that. That turns that into a 3/4 creature. Got it. 2-man. Play Thalia's Lieutenant. Make some friends. I am crashing in for a large amount of damage here. This is either 10 damage or destroy target Elvish Reclaimer. It is 10 damage. So the Elvish Reclaimer and the Urza Saga are both difficult to activate right now. Elvish Reclaimer could represent something like Glacial Chasm immediately. The land that this gets is tapped. I imagine that my opponent is going to float mana with Urza Saga and then just Reclaimer it away into a different land. No, they can't do that, right? It's 4 total mana to do that? Yeah. So they can float, get a new mana source. Shadow Spear, not currently equipable. I think my Suppression Field might have stolen this one. Echoing Deeps. There's a mana. If my opponent did not play the Expedition map, they could have done something else with their turn. Basic Plains is not what I want to see. So my opponent has 1 card in hand. This is not live. Really wanted to draw a creature here. Crop rotation for Maze of Ith is a thing. I think I'm sending in with everyone. The Champion of the Parish has double strike. My opponent has to answer that. Alright, show me your trick. That's not gonna work. Alright, it is crop rotation. My opponent has enough mana to now activate Maze of Ith here to not die. But they take 1, which was my whole point of this attack. So they go to 5. That means that if Champion ever gets through, my opponent dies. Both Mox Diamonds have to be committed to activating Maze of Ith. And it's this stage of the game where I just miss the fact that my deck has 0 card advantage. That's another Maze of Ith, which actually doesn't really change things all that much. I am fine casting this pre-combat. Alright. Now this means that Thalia's Lieutenant can attack in. My opponent mazes the 5/5 and it takes 1 damage. But they are back at a life total where they can potentially take a card off of Sylvan Library and not instantly die. Opponent just passes the turn. I will play an Esper Sentinel, trigger my creatures, send in for what is probably 2 points of damage. Yep. Opponent is at 5, facing down 3-ish damage next turn, and we win that one. The Suppression Field did a lot of work. Now I have to decide if I want either of these things. The Fairy Macabres don't do anything unless my opponent has Life from the Loam. The Fairy Macabres become very awkward if I have Suppression Field in play, as they become expensive graveyard hate. Every creature I board out makes it harder to trigger my Champion and Thalia's Lieutenant. I think I'm just going to run it and hope to get lucky. This is a turn 1 Suppression Field. The hand is a keep. We'll go Plains, imprint Chrome Mox, imprint one of these, turn 1 Suppression Field. Try to follow up, probably with Thalia. Yavimaya, Exploration, don't want to see that. At least I have a basic Plains here. Really don't want to see that draw. That was very, very bad for me. The legendary creatures in multiples is a real downside of playing a strategy like this. We're in the same position as last game, where if my opponent ends up having a Force of Vigor, they take out a Mana Rock and a hate card at the same time. There's another downside of playing legendary creatures. Every creature in my hand is legendary. That's rough. Okay, Ever non-human. Play out Zach. Play this one out. Going to put the counter on Zach. It's easier to replay Zach than to replay the 2-drop. Although I might just get wastelanded. We'll see. Alright, we get bounced. My 2-drop got bounced. It doesn't mean that my 1-drop won't just get bounced too. It's very possible that this Caracas just solos this entire game. I think we're going to go directly to combat. Send on in. If my opponent wants to bounce this. Fuck. There's a punish for not playing another creature pre-combat. Now I can't move my counters around. What a disaster. Alright. Take some damage. Play Thalia. Do this. This is just not great. Even with Suppression Field, I think Caracas just solos my deck. My opponent now has multiple different bodies. Can't double block here due to the Caracas. Alright. Another legendary creature that's a duplicate of a creature I already have. Ah! Sound dead. I get bounced. Opponent takes some damage. I'll do this. Put a counter here. I don't think it is worth legend ruling one of these for a singular +1/+1 counter right now. I'm fully just going to die to my opponent's beatdown here, backed by this Caracas. I guess that helps a bit. So there's the lieutenant. Go to combat. Imagine that my opponent now bounces this here before I get that attack trigger. Bounce Thalia instead. Sure. I'll send in. This will be a double striker. Is crop rotation for Maze of Ith. No, that doesn't make sense in the face of Suppression Field. Okay, Talon Gates as Fog. Reasonable. Second main phase. I'll play out a Thalia. That's a Dark Depths. My opponent can get the Thespian stage side of it with Elvish Reclaimer. Not looking great for me. An opponent just passes the turn. This is a good but awkward draw. I'm still in for doing it. Just means that I might not be redeploying a creature immediately. Elvish Reclaimer activation after a little thinking. Opponent is going for Glacial Chasm. That is going to cause them to sacrifice another land. This means that their creatures can't attack, which buys me some time to scale up the team, so I think that's fine. This is a considerable amount of time. Just not sure how good that time is in the face of double Suppression Field. An opponent passes the turn. Yeah, I'll just cast this. Glacial Chasm Recursion is a lot less scary without exploration. I'll pass here. No, that's not how that works. Not how that works either. Everything costs a gajillion D. Dismember? I think they don't know how to cast Dismember. Okay, they figured it out. Casting Dismember on Magic Online is a little... Oh, that's not the one that I thought was going to go. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to get rid of Thalia's Lieutenant there, because that's the non-legendary creature that is going to continue to scale up. They're sacrificing their Glacial Chasm, and now they can attempt to become the beatdown. That'll probably work. Yeah. So I'm going to chump block with a Witch Enchanter here and go to 2. And keep this so it can scale up bigger than these other creatures. Champion is a 1/1. Champion is a 2/2. Champion is a 3/3. That does not immediately outscale. We do it this way instead. There's a Thalia. Trigger the Lieutenant. There's this. The counter doesn't really matter where it goes. Oh, I'm just dead to Caracas Bounce. Yeah, I'm just dead to Caracas Bounce. Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Yep. This deck gets soloed by Caracas. So legendary, legendary, legendary in terms of ratios here. Alright, I guess we do have more non-legendary than legendary creatures, and I just drew multiple Thalias, multiple Urdnans, and I think multiple Zacs. Okay, that was slightly unlucky then, I guess. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. if you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Profield if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. Okay, my opening hand does not possess mana. We'll mulligan this one. This is a fine hand. I'm going to keep this, get rid of a Witch Enchanter, and hope that I either draw additional lands or don't get wastelanded. And there's a whole discussion about, like, do I actually play the Cavern of Souls over basic plains here? Misty Rainforest. I'll do a Thalia. My opponent started to Force of Will and then realized, yeah. So if my opponent is a traditional cantrip style deck, Thalia is putting a lot of pressure on their mana, and Esper Sentinel will potentially draw me a bunch of cards. Basic Forest. We are a blue-green deck. Yeah. Cool. Just gonna fucking die to Nadu combo. My Wasteland doesn't work here. This sucks, because my opponent can just go land Nadu next turn, and I have to hold up Swords to Plowshares if I want to play around that, due to my own Thalia. I think I have to play around that. I don't know, maybe I don't. No, I do. Whoa. Alright. Send in for 3. 15. There's the next land drop. There's the Nadu. My opponent still gets to draw 2 cards off of their Nadu, right? Like, they do this, and then I respond with this, and then they get a second card off of it. I know this is effectively uncounterable unless this top card is a land. A Force of Will. Okay. There was a land. That one doesn't make mana immediately. Yep. Go aggro here. Throw your creature. Cavern of Souls on human. I think we're most interested in Ward. Is 7 damage. My stuff's hard to deal with. Can still just die. Ready for Cephalid Illusionist? Oh, it's Scythecat Cub. That's fine. I will maybe just outright kill through that next turn, or close to it. So Scythecat is now a 4/4 after the second landfall. There's Nomads, sure. There's Thalia's Lieutenant. Block. Take 6. I think I'll just send in with my first strike creature. Okay, now I have a go wide lethal attack next turn, if I don't just die. Alright. That tax is now 3, so I get to draw 2 cards here. If I draw Swords to Plowshares, it's not actually castable. I think opponent now needs Cephalid Illusionist and a land drop. They can go Cephalid Illusionist, combo off, and have 1 mana to pay the Thalia tax on Dread Return. Alright, that's a shuffle. That's great. It's a bird. I imagine that means that I now win easily. So there's Uncounterable Champion. Trigger. There's another ward thing. Trigger. My 3 largest creatures get blocked, and then my opponent is very dead. We won. That did not feel good from my side of the battlefield. Like, I know I have an overwhelming board presence here, but I was just dead to multiple different things, and I was fully dead if I did not play around Nadu. Alright, Suppression Field, get in here. Solitude, get in here. Stony Silence is a thing that I could consider. Sanctifier en-Vec stops Dread Return? That's very niche. It's also possible that my opponent is just fully not breakfast. Scythecat Cub probably indicates that they are on a mid-range build, in which case I don't need to play around Dread Return. Let's assume they are on Nadu, like the Nadu mid-range deck. I'm going to get rid of Zach. I think my opponent is going to exile stuff in a lot of cases rather than destroy it. How many mana sources do I have? It's less than 20. Okay, so it's 19 lands and then 3 Chrome Mox. This is bananas if I hit the land, and god-awful if I don't. Mulligan. This is higher upside than the previous hand, but this is significantly more stable. I will keep this. Yeah, looks like my opponent is mid-range. Don't think I get to wasteland here. I think I have to just play my aggro game. My goal is to make a large champion of the Parish that is defended by multiple instances of Ward 1. That is a Nadu. If I don't Caracas, if I don't keep the ability to Caracas set up, I could just die. I don't think I win this game if I just am repeatedly bouncing Nadu. I am accordingly going to ignore Nadu, and if I die, I die. I need to scale up champion enough so that it can attack into Nadu. And I don't have, like, repeated land drops here to play a prolonged game. So, like, if my opponent has got it here, they've got it here, and I'm dead to it. They've got it here. We're out. I don't sit through this combo on my channel anymore. It's just incredibly boring. And we'll get back in there for a game 3. This hand does not do a turn 1 play. I feel like I either need a turn 1 play or a suppression field. Let's mulligan. Now, when I said I needed a turn 1 play, I do need mana to cast my cards. Cavern does not cast swords. This is not keepable either. We're going to 5. Alright. 1 Caracas goes back, and then one of the 2 drops goes back. I think I'm keeping this one here. I think the double strike gives me a faster clock on average than the go wide scaling of Thalia's Lieutenant on a mulligan to 5. Basic forest into a bird. And I can decide whether or not I want to try to bottleneck my opponent on mana, or whether or not I want to save the swords for Nadu. I think I'm going to try to bottleneck them on mana. This is a basic land. I might, like, very realistically be cutting them off of a color here. This unfortunately means that I am only attacking for 1 this turn. Savannah into Scythecat Cub. Ward is cool. Attacking with double strike might be cooler. So trigger, punchies, send in. This is 6 damage. Opponent takes it. I've got Caracas available to bounce a Nadu. Otherwise, I probably just bounce my own creature here. With the intention of redeploying it. Opponent fetches. And Scythecat Cub scales up again. There's a Brainstorm. There's Shuko. So now any turn that I don't have this Caracas available to bounce, I can potentially just die. Scythecat Cub is fucking huge. End of turn. Bounce this. And I only get to play 1 of these. So, rip my ward. I do get double strike, though. That's the good news here. This attack-in is still fine. Opponent is at 2. I can defend versus a Nadu. Saga is hopefully slow. Gonna be a green sun. There's Nadu. My opponent will get 2 draws out of Nadu. As I Caracas bounce here. There's a land drop for Scythecat Cub. Urza's Saga. I hope I don't just die to Scythecat Cub here. I guess this could also be a random untapped green land. Counter on Nadu. It's the Swords to Plowshares instead. Fuck. Yeah. Cool. Didn't we enjoy this game of Magic the Gathering where Nadu was involved? So now this same play pattern just presents itself where my opponent gets to replay the Nadu. I have to bounce it with Caracas. They get to draw 2 more cards out of it. They can then redeploy the Nadu afterwards. Due to their untapped mana. I guess that keeps them from making construct tokens, but you know, I think I'm dead. Let's move on. Nadu absolutely just brutalizes decks that look like mine. GG's. Okay. Opening hand is fine, I guess. The Chrome Mox is incredibly awkward here. Like, if I Chrome Mox out Coppercoat Vanguard, it itself does not have ward. If I power out this does not scale up anyone else immediately. But if I don't use the Chrome Mox, then I can't cast Swords to Plowshares. So, all around awkward. Opponent says hello. I think I'm just going to maximize my creature damage by ignoring Chrome Mox in the short term. Do something like Zack into Vanguard into Thalia's Lieutenant, and if I need to pivot to get true white for Swords to Plowshares, I can. Ancient Tomb from Mox. Opponent is thinking about what to cast. We're gonna go with a Chalice. That makes it easier for me too. From Mox's Swords to Plowshares. I don't really know that I need to do that immediately though. Cavern can just go on human. Play the ward creature here. Send in for 2. The Coppercoat Vanguards. Really? Why did you keep your hand? Did you keep a 7-card hand? We're going to the log. No, okay, you kept a 6-card hand. Opponent says, well, not the best day to try out a new deck. What is in the rest of that hand that makes that hand keepable? Because Chalice of the Void is not going to make that hand keepable. Chalice is not very good in Legacy anymore. Was this just I'm just going to reluctantly keep this 6-card hand and hope something else off the top saves it? Sometimes you do have to keep those. But there's a lot of really strong things that are quite good against my deck. Broadside, the One Ring, Fury, Pyroglyph. I'm very surprised that my opponent just rolled that easily. I'm going to be thinking about these 7 cards here. Sanctifier is pro-red. That's a thing. I need some amount of this stuff for the One Rings and Broadsides. So, I'm definitely playing all of the Suppression Fields. I might be boarding these out. I don't know, I could also... I don't know how often... It's very weird to want to do Zack things while doing a playset of Suppression Fields. I'm not going to have enough time to think through this. I get rid of all of the Urdnans. That is a creature count of 29. Really a creature count of 27. I'm very well insulated versus the One Ring. I'm a little less good versus some of the fair stuff. Ye old Chromie Silence combo. We'll mulligan this one. Oof. We're on 5. Non-basic white source into Esper Sentinel, into Suppression Field, and one of these cards. Sure. It's not you. I think I'll keep Swords to better play around just a Broadside ruining my life. But the Luminarch Aspirant scaling up Esper Sentinel would be very, very big game here. Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb. I can very close to lose the game on the spot to a Moon effect before I get to float white in response. Basic Plains off the top, baby. Damn, it feels good to be a gangster. We're going to keep their Magus of the Moon in play for a while. That is denying them Ancient Tomb mana right now. And if I can Swords something other than Magus, that is very, very, very preferable for me. So this does not get to choose a type there. They're going to go ahead and beat down, which is a-okay with me. Oh, we drew one anyway. I think I still stick Suppression Field first. Give a love tap for 1. 17. Rome Mox. To draw a card. I'm definitely on a 1 spell at a time plan here, though. Oh shit, it's Red-White Initiative. It is not Moon Stompy. That gives my opponent basic Plains. Sure. I don't know if that creature was supposed to attack. Because now I can just Swords this and contest the initiative. This is very bad for my opponent. Screensaver, if you watch this later, this was a critical turn of this game. Because now you are giving me a second basic Plains by making that Magus of the Moon attack. Ooh, okay, that helps a lot. 3-4 damage. Still think I'm very favored here. But my opponent is going to get some good value here. The opponent is going aggro. Lost Well might be better there. Card... It really depends on... No, they don't have that card at the time. Me and Spirit Guide. Sure. Ooh. Nice. Do I need to Swords Magus? Yes, I want to use 3 white mana this turn. I do need to Swords Magus. So gain 4. Wasteland better? No, multiple bodies matters. So then do this. Trigger. I'm going to put counter here, then I have 2 different 2/2s that if I draw any human can become 2 different 3/3s to attack into Spirit Guide here. I am at 8. I just kind of need to dodge like an initiative creature or solitude level creature this turn. They might need to retap that. I'm just letting them know. So it looks like opponent has a red creature in their hand that they cannot cast. This is a cavern that is played under Magus of the Moon. Okay, very nice. There's cavern. Cavern on human. There's uncounterable Coppercoat Vanguard. I'll go to combat. Luminarch Aspirant will move itself up to a 3/3. Then I will send in and contest the initiative, getting me a basic plains. I've already made my land drop. I'm fine trading Coppercoat for Spirit Guide. This is a red creature that my opponent cannot cast. I think I am okay waste landing this at the cost of my excess mana. And maybe we can strand something like a Seasoned Dungeoneer in hand. Alright, opponent says GG's, have a good one. GG's, good luck learning red-white initiative. It is a fun deck, but it's a really uphill battle to be playing initiative in the current Reanimator metagame because the play patterns of Thoughtseize you reanimate your creature are really rough. We are having to mulligan a lot of hands here just due to having literal 0 lands. See what I mean? Is there any world where I keep this, play an Esper Sentinel on turn 1, and hope that between draw step and maybe an Esper Sentinel trigger that I hit another one? I don't think so. This is easily the best hand so far. Not close. Land drop 3 goes back, and then I'm going to ditch one of these 2 cards. I'm going to ditch the swords. And the power of this hand is going to vary wildly depending on whether or not I get to draw cards with Esper Sentinel. Tapped Mystic Sanctuary. Oh, wow. I think I'm going to go with Thalia here. I think playing either one of the 2 drops is totally fine. Scaling up the Esper Sentinel tax is perfectly reasonable. Got Mountain and Mystic Sanctuary. Who is uncounterable here? I think I am into this. Esper Sentinel. Trigger. Send in for 3 points of damage. Opponent is at 17. That's an Ancient Tomb. We are... Oh, that's a shit ton of damage. I'm just going to confirm that that is more damage than this one. So this is plus 4 damage for Thalia's Lieutenant. I play this. This is a 4/4. This is also plus 4 damage. This does more, though, and scales up the Esper Sentinels as well. Triggers. Seems big. Send it. Opponent is at 5. Has not cast a single spell this game. There is a rather costly Brainstorm. I draw a Thalia's Lieutenant. It's very possible for me to lose the game here, but I didn't. But we are probably playing against a show and tell deck, specifically a sneak attack deck. And suppression fields are probably good. They could, in theory, also hit something like the One Ring. Solitude is probably okay. Deafening Silence is kind of ugly, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Sanctifier en-Vec can go here. Zach can probably be cut. And then let's assume that the value over time is less important. I could also get cheeky and try to do Mindbreak Trap, but that often doesn't line up super well. It can do things versus some Omniscience lines, but it's hard for that to be the case. This is fine. Ancient Tomb. Lotus Petal. Turn 1? Then turn 1, baby. Put in Thalia. That's an Emrakul. It's fine because the top card of my deck is Caracas. Damn. We get one more time to say that. I get 15 and lose Thalia. I am at 5. And it's fine because the top card of my deck is Caracas. I was dramatically pausing for theme purposes, but then my opponent went into the tank about something. That is not going to do it. That's what game 3 is for. No changes to sideboarding here. All right, opening hand is solid. We have a bunch of different hate cards. The Thalia is a little awkward until I get the suppression fields in play, assuming that I want to suppression field. The suppression fields are a little awkward with the Caracas that I have in hand. So we will have to figure out exactly how I'm going to navigate this game, but the cards that are here are solid. Volcanic Island, pass the turn. So awkward. 2-man. I think I am going to get Thalia going, despite the awkwardness here with Suppression Field. Opponent brainstorms in response. Not to find a counterspell, but just because it would cost more afterwards. I would very much like to hit more mana off the top of my deck. If I don't, I kind of start going into beatdown mode somewhat awkwardly. Fetching for just like a ponder, yeah. Okay, nice. So due to my Thalia, my spells are uncounterable here. And this is more than one non-creature spell each turn. So there's Esper Sentinel. Here's a Luminarch Aspirant. I think my opponent's mana is tight enough as is where I don't stack these up on Esper Sentinel, and I just do the thing that produces the most immediate damage. So starting next turn, I have to worry about stuff. But I think with I think with Caracas available, this is fine. This time we can go on Esper Sentinel, send on in. Opponent's at 12, then 7. Regular land drop. There's a show and tell. Trigger, get swords. I think I don't put in a suppression field. I think the Caracas is more valuable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If an Emrakul attacks, I can keep lethal damage. It is Archon of Cruelty. That seems fine. So if Thalia gets blocked, I have 6 damage. Keep Aspirant. My opponent's getting some life anyway. I think the ward and the card draw and the taxing is valuable. Let's get rid of Aspirant. Rid of a suppression field. Yep, so this is just uncounterable right now. Bam. Send on in. Opponent is at 7. Next land drop. Blood Moon. Sure. I have lethal on board. Combat. Send it. And opponent is dead, and we win that one. Definitely some awkwardness within our own cards here with like the suppression field, Caracas, Thalia nonsense that was going on, but it worked out. GG's. Okay. Opening hand is a 5-card hand. I cannot cast these 2 cards. Some portion of the time I draw into white mana, but I have 2 caverns, 4 wastelands in the deck that don't work for that. Reluctant keep. It's very possible I should just mulligan to a hand with a 1-drop. Saga. Romox. We're on Moon Stompy. Alright, well, the Swords is an even more dead card than it was a second ago. Here is a Cavern on Human. I'll pass the turn. I'm fully dead on a Blood Moon on multiple different levels here. Like, it would keep this as a construct machine. Looks like my opponent doesn't have Blood Moon. That's great for me. There's another dead Swords to Plowshares. That's bad for me. This is on Human. Super unfortunate that I can't cast this here. I'm going to just opt for the disruptive card. I really need cast this suppression field. Playing Thalia means that Chrome Mox is less good than I would like. But I think I long-term like the idea of a heavily buffed first strike creature. Opponent floating mana here. Going for boots. Chrome Mox around the Thalia attacks. Imprinting a broadside, which is an incredible card in this matchup. They're just giving it ward. Sure. I'm gonna get racked for 5. You've got it. I think I can take 1 draw. Find basic planes. And if I miss, I don't think I'm live anymore. Sure. I'll take the hit, and I missed. We are dead. Magus of the Moon got us. I need at least these and these in here. And I can think about these for one ring. What did I do before? I think I cut Zax. And I don't remember what I did. Or am I falling on Stony Silence? One ring is just so incredibly difficult to beat if I don't shut it off with Suppression Field or Stony Silence. I think I did this and cut the Urdnans. This is fine. Opponent is mulliganing. We will lead on an Esper Sentinel. I would really like to draw a card or two with this over the course of this game. Spirit Guide, Fable. That's going to give me an immediate card. Chromox is quite good, actually. So I can go Chromox, Imprint, I think a Coppercoat, play a Coppercoat, Wasteland this, stay aggressive. Opponent is at 16. Possible I'm supposed to hold back there. Blood Moon and Karn go away. Alright, that's a tapped land. Alright, opponent is attacking in. I am trading every time. I just have another Wasteland coming. So, play new Coppercoat. Play Wasteland. Wasteland your land. Send in for 2. 14. Now, I've got either Suppression Field or Swords for Reflection of Kiki Jiki. I mean, yeah, do that. I think I just Swords. Send in for the 4. Triple Wasteland draw, totally fair and balanced. And there is the concession. Now that I know that my opponent's build has Karn, how am I feeling about Stony Silence? Do I just want a few more bodies to pressure Karn? No, I think I'll keep Stony Silence. Again, I'm so incredibly scared of the One Ring here. This is fine. I don't think it is any better than fine. I think I'll keep it. I've got the basic plane, so I'm not just dead to turn 1 Blood Moon. Fable. Sure thing. Other basic planes, that's not what I want here. We will just go land drop into Esper Sentinel. It's very possible that I just get run over here. Wow, my opponent chooses not to discard anything and must be stacked. They lose City of Traders. Here's Broadside. So this is awful, because my opponent can attack, make the treasure, throw the treasure at Esper Sentinel. Yeah, I'll take 4 here. Then I have drawn yet another land. I can Suppression Field and, like, slow down this nonsense. But it is a slow down, not a stop. And I also just have nothing on board. Another Fable. Yikes. So these multiple Goblin Shamans accumulating treasures probably means that Broadside is very good. This is an incredibly inefficient turn. I have 1, 2, 3 different things that can all remove 1 body. I will take out a Broadside. This does not shut off Reflection of Kiki Jiki. I can potentially just die this turn. Opponent discards a 1 ring. And I take 6 damage. That's half of my life total. Now I can go 4 mana for a Witch Enchanter. Destroy the Reflection. Get attacked, take 2 damage. My opponent has so many cards in hand. I am not expecting this to go well for me. 5 mana is a Fury. I think this is the point that I can't come back from anymore. I take 4 damage here. I go to 2. My opponent has 4 different bodies. I don't think there's anything in my deck that gets me out from that situation. Another land drop. Opponent still has 5 mana. I could just die to a Pyroglyph here. Magus of the Moon. Sure. That won't do it. And we got our butts kicked here. That means that we only put 2 wins on the board in this league for a 2-3 finish. Alrighty, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I see what it's going for, but I'm not the biggest fan. Let's resort this. So I was not overly impressed by Zach here. and I think that was the case in my previous league as well. I was much more impressed with Urdnan in this league. Champion into Urdnan, immediately giving it double strike is a hell of a clock. Format might just be too fast for Luminarch Aspirant right now. It's cool in board stalls, and like it's nice for the +1/+1 counter synergies. Don't know if this is the time. It definitely did some things. Like it broke a board stall versus a Simian Spirit Guide that otherwise could have been a little annoying versus Initiative, for example. Backed up some counters on Esper Sentinel once or twice to increase the tax. The deck is doing an okay of hedging against various things. But like we do have very relevant activated abilities in this deck that we are shutting off with Suppression Field. Definitely felt some of that tension. Felt the tension of being a Wasteland Cavern of Souls deck that is playing both Swords and Suppression Field, making my stuff castable. I don't know if the deck has enough mana in it. We mulliganed a lot, and I mean a lot of hands that either did not have enough lands or only had colorless sources. So this is neat. I don't know that I would recommend it highly, but it's certainly fun to play. If you're looking for something fun to play and you don't care about losing some play points, this is a good way to spend an afternoon. I think that's where I'll call it. And with that, I think that's all I've got. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.